this is trash.
Yep. Hey class. So we're doing section 10.4, which is all about add, subtract, divide radical expressions. Not multiply because we did that back in the previous sections. This is, I guess, like variables. If I want you to simplify 2x plus 3x plus 5y, those combine to be 5x, but you can't combine the x and the y together. Similarly, if you've got square root of 2 plus square root of 3, you can't combine those. But if you had another, say, 5 square roots of 3, that could simplify to be the square root of 2 plus 6 square root of 3, because you had 1 here and 5 more here. That's the essence of the adding and subtracting radical expressions. Of course, naturally, if you've got square root of 50 plus square root of 32, it looks like those can't be combined at all, but we have to simplify these out, recognizing that 25 is the same as, 50 is the same as 25 times 2, 32 is 16 times 2, square root of 25 is 5, square root of 2, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 2, and it looks like we have 9 square roots of 2. So that's how you handle the adding and subtracting of these. Throw in some variables and it works basically the same way. But this whole idea of division, a little bit more difficult. And there's the general rule that says not allowed to have radicals in denominator and no fractions under radicals. So with that in mind, if I want to simplify the fraction 1/4, that is not simplified because there's a fraction under the radical. Well, what I could do is separate this into two separate radicals. Great. And now, because of that, I could square root this, square root this. The square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 4 is 2. Therefore, this simplifies to be the square root, 1/2. But they, of course, don't always work out quite that easily. So let's say we have another example that would be maybe 3 divided by the square root of 5. Doesn't simplify, you can't reduce any of this, but what you could do is, wow, hey, do you remember this? 3/5 plus 2/7. Can't add those. Denominators aren't the same, right? Well, what if you multiplied to get a common denominator? What is 7/7? 1. What is 5/5? 1. So we're not actually changing the fraction's value, we're just changing the way it looks. And by changing the way it looks, we can end up getting same denominators. What is that, 31/35? So it allows us to add those fractions together. So if you have unlike denominators, multiply by 1. Well, what if I multiplied by 1 over here? A 1 written in a very crafty way so as to get rid of that square root. And maybe we know that the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 cancels out the square root. Well, I'll just multiply the numerator also by the square root of 5. Square root of 5 over square root of 5, that's 1. So we're not changing the value of the fraction, just the way it looks. 3 times the square root of 5 over, let's see, would that be the square root of 25? Which is probably unnecessary to write. It just becomes 5. And that is my answer. Why doesn't this 5 cancel with this 5? Because this isn't a 5. It's a square root of 5. They're different things, so our answer is good as that is. This is called rationalizing the denominator. It gets a little bit more difficult when we start talking about maybe the cube root of 5. In this case, do you recognize that multiplying by the cube root of 5 is not actually going to help us? because I end up with the cube root of 25. 25 isn't a perfect cube, so that way, that method doesn't work. Let me get my high-tech eraser here. So what we need to multiply by instead is whatever it takes, multiply by whatever it takes so that I can get a perfect cube in the denominator. And since I've already got a 5, if you remember that list of numbers that I wrote up over here on the board a week or so ago, I think the first perfect cube divisible by 5 is 125. Well, then what do I need to multiply the cube root of 5 by to turn it into 125? That'd be a 25. So if I multiply top and bottom by the cube root of 25, in the denominator I get the cube root of 125. What is the cube root of 125? That would be, oops, that would be 5. And that is my simplified answer. Hopefully that's enough of a teaser for you for this section. As always, if that doesn't help much at all, or if there wasn't enough in this to give you help with the homework, feel free to give me an email and I'll help you out.